Full house. Full house. Welcome to Water's Edge. Glad you're here. You guys want to come up front? Sing up front together as a big group? It's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. Come on, Summer. I know you're into it. Come on, Linnea. Get out of your box a little bit. Come on, Adam. Come on, Adam. Let's go. Adam's not going to do it. Thanks, Joe. Crystal and Jasmine, you got to come out from behind the chairs. They're too restricting. They're too restricting. Alex, I see you smiling. Come on. Come on. If you guys come up here too, I won't spit on you. Yeah, now we're talking. All right, we're going to start out with a new song. It's called I Know a Name. Oh yeah, we still got the music going? I can hear it now. It's Nick's fault. He was distracting her. The song, though, is just about the power that the name of Jesus has. And when we call on him, right, we can expect something to happen. May not be exactly what we think, but something's going to happen because his name has power in it. And I know a name that can silence roaring waves. I know a name that can empty out a grave. I know a name. It's the only name that saves, and it's worthy of all praise. I call you Jesus. I call you hero, risen and reigning in power. Something comes out of the grave. Every time I call you Jesus, I call death is now your sting, and where, oh grave, your victory. Where, oh death, is now your sting, and where, oh grave, your victory. I call your name. I call you Jesus. What do you guys think? You like it? I've been turned round, but I've never been lost. Seen the waters get troubled, but we walked across. When my knees were shaking, you held my hand, turning my problems to a promised land. So lead on, good shepherd, I follow all my days. There ain't nothing sweeter than to watch you make a way. You walk me through the valley, but you never steer me wrong. So lead on, good shepherd, lead on. Seen some mighty deep canyons that you brought me through. Seen some mighty big mountains that just up and move. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Yeah, that's my song. Walking with my Father to the great unknown. Lead on, good shepherd, I follow all my days. There ain't nothing sweeter than to watch you make a way. You walk through the valley, but you never steered me wrong. So lead on, good shepherd, lead on. Step by step, day by day, lead me on, Lord, I pray. The road gets dark, we walk by faith. Lead on, good shepherd, and step by step, day by day, pray. The road gets dark, we walk by faith. Lead on, good shepherd, step by step, day by day. Lead me on, Lord, I pray. The road gets dark, we walk by faith. Lead on, good shepherd, step by step, day by day. Lead me on, Lord, I pray. The road gets dark, we walk by faith.
Lead on, good shepherd.
Step by step, day by day. Lead me on, Lord, I pray. The road gets dark, we walk by faith. Lead on, good shepherd, step by step, day by day. Lead me on, Lord, I pray. The road gets dark, we walk by faith. Lead on, good shepherd, lead on, good shepherd, lead on, good shepherd. Oh, I follow all my days. There ain't nothing sweeter than to watch you make a way. You walk me through the valley, but you never steer me wrong. So lead on, good shepherd, lead on. So lead on, good shepherd, lead on. So lead on, good shepherd, lead on. One more time. Step by step, day by day. Lead me on, Lord, I pray. The road gets dark, we walk by faith. Lead on, good shepherd, step by step, day by day. Lead me on, Lord, I pray. The road gets dark, we walk by faith. Lead on, good shepherd, lead on. I wanna dance like David, I wanna faith like Paul, I wanna sing like Silas, tearing down the prison walls. I wanna face that fire, it won't burn me though. God's got my back, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. You guys did good. I wanna dance like David, I wanna faith like Paul, I wanna sing like Silas, tearing down the prison walls. I wanna face that fire, it won't burn me though. God's got my back, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. I wanna walk like Moses, right through the waves. One day I'll see that promised land, no longer slaves. Though the fear is talking, can't take out my faith. I'm gonna praise, I'm gonna praise. I praise the mountain moving body, raising breaker chains. Gonna praise, I'm gonna praise. I praise the heaven seated, undefeated, highest of names. That's who I praise. Yeah, that's who I praise. That's who I praise. I want a gift like Mary, I want to break my vase. I want to see Daniel leaving in a lion's cave. I want to get that promise just like Jericho. Yeah, I know what'll make it fall. I'm gonna praise, I'm gonna praise. I praise the mountain moving body, raising breaker chains. Gonna praise, I'm gonna praise. I praise the heaven seated, undefeated, highest of names. That's who I praise. Yeah. He is the lion. who's worthy, worthy, worthy of all of his names. That's who I praise. He is the risen Messiah. He is the Ancient of Days, the only one who's worthy, worthy, worthy of all of his names. That's who I praise. He is the Lion of Judah. He is the Lamb that was slain, the only one who's worthy, worthy, worthy of all of his names. That's who I praise. He is the risen Messiah. He is the Ancient of Days, the only one who's worthy, worthy, worthy of all of his names. That's who I praise. So I'm gonna praise. I praise the mountain moving, body raising, breaker chain. Gonna praise. I'm gonna praise. I praise the heaven seated, undefeated, highest of names. That's who I praise. I wanna love like Jesus, that kind of grace. Wanna live like I got no more precious time to waste. Gonna give him glory with all my thanks, 'cause there's no greater, stronger, higher name, and that's who I praise. Thank you, Lord.
I want you to go ahead and grab a seat. Thank you, worship team. Good morning, Water's Edge. How are we doing today? Good. We're going to do some things a little bit differently today and probably for the rest of the summer. We're going to kind of change a pace. You guys ready for a change of pace? Good, because we're going to do it anyways. All right, so one of the things that we're going to end up doing, we're going to try our best, especially in the summer. It gets hot later into the afternoon, and I heard today is going to be a hot day, and we're not allowed to complain because I heard 9 months of you guys saying it's too cold. Okay? So we're going to be thankful for the sunshine. One of the things that we're going to do, I know that during the summer we have a lot more of a transient culture where we're sometimes here, sometimes gone. We got a lot of people that are camping, a lot of people with family, and that's okay, right? One of the things that I think that in this season that God's inviting us to do is to be with each other, to rest with each other, to slow down, okay? So there's an invitation for us to do that. We're going to try to do some more things like today, for instance. Come to the cookout at the Madison's home tonight, 6 p.m., 687 Cherry Creek Road. You can take a picture of this or come talk to me afterwards if you need to know how to get there. We'll bring the burgers and the brats and buns, and if you guys want to just bring a side, come and just enjoy, right? So part of this is, hey, you know what? As a church, let's just enjoy each other around a fire. We'll sing some songs, we'll hang out, but it's a time, especially if you are new, come meet some people. Or if you're busy and you're just like, man, this last year has been crazy and we've got all these things going on with our kids, well, exhale. Spend some time with each other, right? It's coming together in that presence that we're looking for, okay? So that's part of why we did, lines out here for basketball court. And we've got Gaga Ball. And so one of the things that we're going to do is a shift with our church Sunday mornings is starting next week, we'll have our 5-minute talk that we usually do at the very start. So come at 10:10 if you want to have that encouragement, because we'll start off with that, and then we'll go from that into worship via song, and then I'm going to go straight into sermon just like I am today, okay? So we'll go into the sermon, and then we'll have some time for prayer. So the normal rhythm is that we do the prayer time at the start, and I find that sometimes I wrestle with oh man, we've got 3 groups that are really like into it still, and they're praying, and they've got some things that they're trying to work through. And I feel this like, do I cut them off? Do I not? And so I'm going to just release myself from that. So one of the things that we're going to do is when we get done with the sermon, I'm going to give you some reflections. I'm going to encourage you guys to break up into groups to pray then. And listen, I understand if you have stuff to go through, like, we'll release you. It's okay. But if you're leaving just because prayer is awkward, I'm going to challenge and invite you to still stay and pray anyway, right? This is a great time for you to just share some of what's going on with your life and what's going on with, man, you know what? I need to sit on that reflection and think about it a little bit. How does that apply to my life right now, right? And sit and pray. And you know what? If you need to go outside and play, that's okay. If you need to stay and pray a little longer, I don't want to cap that time of prayer. Does that make sense? Okay. So, new format, we're going to do that so that we're not going to end with a worship set. And the other part of that is, man, we've got some faithful worshipers that have been doing this for like 20 years, right? And I also want to give them a chance to exhale and receive instead of pouring out all the time, okay? So that's kind of what we're going to be doing. We've been talking quite a bit about Jesus, start of Matthew, you know, the 42 generations and him coming into his baptism, and then from baptism into the temptation. So we're going to focus on a little bit of that today. A couple reflections from last week, just as a place to start off with. He takes pleasure in you. God takes pleasure in you before you have a chance to perform, right? That's one of those beautiful things at the baptism where he's like, this is my son, whom I'm well pleased. This is before Jesus is doing all of the miracles, all the public teaching, anything before he's even tested, going through the temptations in the wilderness. This is before all the tests. He's like, that's my boy. That one right there, that's my kid, and I love him. Like, I need you all to know how much I love my boy, right? And some of us here today, man, it's almost like it would take an incredible amount of courage to consider, just to consider, that maybe, just maybe, God delights in you. That he's like, that's my boy, that's my girl. Oh, I'm so proud of them. Before you go through any of the testing, the temptations, the struggles, the falling on our face. Like, I look at my kiddos, like I've got Selah, she's got her training wheels, and she's at that spot where she's really close to trying to have the courage to bike without the training wheels. Now, as a dad, do I know that she can do it? Yeah. Honestly, she could have done it at the end of last year, right? And there's a time where, like, I could have pushed her last year because, like, I knew she was capable. But, like, you give her the space, the invitation to try and to build some of that courage. And you know what? We're going to take them off sometime this summer, and she's going to go. And you know what? There's going to come a time where she might end up falling on her face, right? I remember when my dad first did it, you know, I had that old banana seat bike, and he gave me a shove on one of those, like, rocky roads, right? Which, like, I look back now, I'm like, man, you could have at least started off, like, dirt or, like, something else, because inevitably, you're like, whoa, I'm doing this, I can do this, wait, I can't do this, I don't know how to do this, and then you fall, right? And you fall when you start doubting the ability that's actually inside of you. Did my dad look at me and say, oh, this kid's never going to get it? Kid's a failure. Didn't pass that test, fell on his face. Look, he's crying on the ground. He skidded his knee. No, my dad's like, look how far you did this. All right, now let's get back up. Let's try it again. Didn't take me a couple falls before I realized, like, no, I actually can ride a bike. I can do this, right? But my dad knew when I was ready to have that challenge, to bring something out inside of me, to bring a confidence inside of me that he knew was already there. There was substance there that he's like, he's ready for this test. He's ready for this thing. Now, was it because he's like, man, I don't know if my kid's ever going to actually figure out how to ride a bike or not? No, he knew, right? Sometimes we think of Jesus like testing and the temptations are like, man, there's this test of Israel or this test of Jesus, and God has no idea what's going to happen. He doesn't know. And it's like, no, he knows, right? It's an invitation for us to know where we're at. Does that make sense? It's an invitation to draw something out of us. Now, as we were worshiping this morning, I was reminded of the thing that I shared, I don't know, a long time ago, but I'm going to share it again, right, with silver, right? When you go and you are putting silver into a fire to refine it. You guys remember this, right? The silver, it gets refined. And do you guys remember, when does the silversmith know that the silver is pure? That all of the dross is taken off, that it's just pure silver? Do you guys remember? when he can see his reflection in the silver, right? He's going to let that fire burn off the junk until he sees his reflection. But that also means that, like, when we're going through these trials, sometimes we're like, man, does God see me? Does he even know what I'm going through? Like, did he forget about me? Is he going to provide? I don't know if he's ever going to eat. He probably forgot me. Does he even care about me? Does he like me? And we're like, does he even see what I'm going through? And he's like, yeah, because you know what? The refiner's fire, that the silversmith, his eyes are intent on the silver. He can't take his eyes off the silver. So if you're in that fire, it's because his eyes are on you, because he does hear you, because he does see what you're going through, because he is saying, you know what? I'm going to wait until I can see my reflection. There it is. Let's take it out of the fire. Right? You guys just saying, I want to have a faith like Paul and David. I want to be like Shadrach, Meshach. I want to go in the fire. Right? You guys sang it. You guys invited him into it. Right? These words have weight. Right? We're not just singing patty cake songs for the fun of it. Right? Just let you know. Those of you guys that are like, I'm not quite ready for that invitation, so I'm not going to sing it. That might be a smart thing because you're inviting that in. You're inviting him to refine you. You're inviting him to test you. And that testing of the silver isn't, I don't know if there's silver or not. It's, hey, God, can you refine my inside and bring it to the outside? Can you put the substance that you say is inside of me? Can you take that substance and bring it to the surface? Because my surface doesn't quite look like the substance you say that I have. That's the invitation that you guys are singing, right? Anyways, there's your pre-sermon. Matthew 4, then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted or tested. Either way, that's the English translation, right? By the devil. After fasting for 40 days and 40 nights, which is a long time without food, he's hungry. No shocker, right? I would be hungry after about 4 hours, right? The tempter came to him and said, if you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread. Jesus answered, it is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. Okay, so today we're going to focus on just the first temptation and some of the remez. So the remez is a Hebrew word where basically, hey, when God is saying something, when Jesus is saying something, he's quoting passages and experiences in the past because he, as the word becoming flesh, is redeeming stories, okay? And he's giving us an understanding. So he's like, hey, you know, it's written. So anytime that Jesus is saying stuff, ask yourself, what story is he talking about? What thing is he redeeming, right? So it is written, okay? Now, I want to take a quick look at this. What are some of these tests? Are you the Son of God? If so, prove it and just provide for yourself. Really, that's really the essence of it. And Jesus' answers was basically, I trust in my God and his provision. Now, there's a book, something like the Heart of a Tender Warrior, something like that. Stu Weber, S-T-U Weber. You can check it out sometime. It's a good book. But one of the things that he talks about is the difference between men and women with the manifest destiny going west wagon trail rides, right? So you guys can all picture all these wagon trains, and they're going, and you got a bunch of these caravans coming through. And what they would do is they would take men, and they would go in twos and rotate as scouts, okay? And so those twos, they would go and they would climb the mountain ahead of them. They would do the rugged path ahead so that they could see what was coming before, okay? This gift of provision, okay? So a lot of times I have always thought of provision as like me providing food for my family, me providing a house for my family, me providing space for my family. And he broke out provision in a way that I had never thought about it before. That pro means before, and vision means to see. So the gift that they were giving the whole crew was to be able to see before, right? So like, give you perspective. If they're going to climb this mountain, they're going to have a different vantage point where they can see further out. And then they go back to the caravan, and they say, okay, listen, we actually have to go right around this mountain, right? It's too dangerous for us to pass the river down here, but we can go across over here, right? Hey, you know what? There's wild beasts over here. We're got to go over here. We're going to camp the night right here. Or, you know what I mean? So they were always looking down the road, what is coming before in order to lead them through, right? Now, the women and children, they were at the base of a lot of these mountains. They didn't have the ability to see what was coming. They could only see what was right in front of them. And so they had to have some level of trust with the one that could see before and their voice that actually this is the way to walk in it. Does that make sense? Now, a lot of times we in our lives, we are the ones in the caravan. And we can't quite see what's coming before, but we have one who can see what is coming and can provide. He has the provision for us that we need. But it takes a level of trust that he actually means good. And so when we've got a hard path to walk, we know that it's the best path to walk. Like he knows how to guide us. We sang another song, Lead On, Good Shepherd. That's what it is. We're saying, listen, you're the shepherd. We trust you as a shepherd to lead us where we need to go. Does that make sense? All right, you guys sang all these songs today, so I'm going to keep going. All right, 40. What does the number 40 mean, right? How many people can think of a 40 in the Bible? 40 years in the desert. Give me another one. 40 days without water. Perfect. There's a couple. I'll give you some more in a second. 40. There's something called gematria, where with Hebrew letters, they also have a numeric value. And so there's going to be times, especially through the New Testament, when we see numbers, we have to remember that Hebrew writers, Jewish writers, are writing specific numbers for specific reasons because it means something different in Hebrew to a Hebrew reader than it would to an American reader, right? It's kind of like, 5,000 people. Well, somebody over there was like, okay, Jesus is multiplying food for 4,998, 99, 5,000. You only counted just the men, right? Yeah, we only count the men in this time period. That one, Isaiah, man, I don't know. No, we're capping it at 5,000. No, it's not like that. It's because 5,000 actually represents something very specific. Keep coming to church and I'll tell you what it means. All right, so there's these things where there's 40, right? Okay? So 40 often appears in pivotal moments of testing, transformation, preparation, purification. So it can represent a full cycle of that preparation or sometimes judgment. Let me give you some examples. Noah's flood, Genesis 7:12. 40 days of rain that moved the world from judgment to purification of the earth. Moses on Mount Sinai stayed up there for 40 days with God on the mountain as he received the Torah, the Pentateuch, the 5 books of the Bible to start off with, that revelation. The spies in Canaan in Numbers 13:25, they spent 40 days scouting the promised land. And if you remember, before they went, God's like, listen, here's the deal. I promise you this land that comes from our ancestors. It's a good and abundant land. I'm giving you this land. It's awesome. It's a good report. Now go check it out. And they go check it out. And they come back and they're like, yeah, it's abundant, but honestly, I wish we were back in Egypt. Right? Now was the test, actually I'm just going to tell you, the test even with that was, hey, you're going to go see with your eyes, but the question is, do you trust his word who told you it was good before you even took one step? You know what I'm saying? Do you trust what he had to say, or are you going to rely on what your eyes tell you? Right? They didn't do a super great job, which is why we have the next one. Israelites in the wilderness, Numbers 14. They wandered 40 years through 42 stations or 42 encampments, which was a judgment and a spiritual refinement of a generation. Okay? Here's another 40. Goliath's challenge in 1 Samuel 17. 40 days of taunting Israel before God brought about a victory through David. It was a pivotal moment between a king who trusted his strength to a king who trusted God's promise. Right? You've got Nineveh's warning. Hey, 40 days from now you're going to be destroyed. And you have a godless country that believes the word of God. And God actually rescinds the judgment and gives them grace. Ironically, for 40 years, another generation, until the next generation 40 years later says, actually, we're going to go back to idolatry and killing people. And then there's a different kind of judgment that happens after that. Okay? You've got Elijah's journey in 1 Kings 19, 40 days of fasting and moving on after he's being ministered to by angels that led him out to Mount Horeb, which is another name for Mount Sinai, right? The same place where Moses was, where Elijah has this pivotal encounter where he goes from understanding God's power to understanding God's presence and is defined by him finally hearing God's still small voice. Everything's about hearing his voice. Jesus' temptation and testing in Matthew 4. Why drop the W? No idea. 40-day fast in the desert at the pivotal time of Jesus moving into a public ministry right after his baptism of the Holy Spirit. Okay, so 40, you're going to often see in regards to a pregnancy symbolism in the Bible too, because it takes 40 weeks approximately for the gestation of something that's a new life that's coming out of you. It's like 40 weeks that's in the water, in the womb, before the new creation comes out of the water. Right? You can see that time and time again. Israel had been in Egypt for generations, but it took a 40 to birth them into a new nation where God viewed them as a son, where they went from slavery to sonship, right? Jesus' baptism, where God called him a son, also led to a 40-day event, which emerged into a new life. Right? That's where the public ministry started beginning. Jesus later tells Nicodemus, one must be born again. Marks that 40 symbolism, baptism. Egypt, which is slave, Israel's son, transformation. Okay? The Hebrew letter mem has a numerical value of 40. It's a letter that represents both water and conception. It's tied to both the womb and the mikvah, which is the Hebrew word for baptism. Okay, 40 is the period that God often uses to cleanse the past, conceive a new future, and reveal a new identity. Okay? So when you start seeing some of these 40s of like, hey, why is Jesus in there for 40 days? He's reliving and restoring a lot of these trials, these things that have happened in the past. There's this invitation where it's like this transformation into new through Jesus. Okay, I want to just pause right here and do a side rant for a second. There's a lot longer of a thing, and I don't know that I want to put it all into a sermon, but I want to just mention there was 42 stations or 42 spots that they were at in the desert. You guys with me? Okay, so those 42 encampments, if you were to be like, okay, I want to map those out, and you looked at those names and you were like, let me see what this name means in English, right? From Hebrew to English, you're going to find that they went from places like I think one of them is like bitterness, for instance. They went from bitterness, and you're like, wait, they camped out in bitterness? Yeah. Is that because there's a city called Bitter? No. It's not because, but that was the thing that defined their encampment where they're at. They were all bitter towards God at that time. Does that make sense? Okay. So if you go down the path, that rabbit trail, you're going to find that there's 42 encampments that mark this transition of a generation where they're going through this purification, where they're going from slavery to sonship, and there's these steps that they walk through, right, in that process. Now, there are a number of Jews that have taken that 42, and they have said, even to this day, there's something called an Anabacoach, okay? It's a 42-letter name of God, right, that they look at with the Jewish liturgical poem. And they use it to count the Omer for bedtime blessings, Shabbat rest days, funerals, holidays like Rosh Hashanah and Hanukkah, etc. And each verse is linked to a day of creation, a day of the week, or the seven Sephirot. If you don't know what that is, that's okay. The 42 represents the path of purification, with the last one entering the purification promise inheritance. Okay? The 42 is tied to the 42 stages or places the Israelites walked through in the desert as they were transformed from slave to son before inheriting the promise. The reason why I'm saying that is, remember when I got stuck like 2 months ago and I was like, why in the world did Matthew say, hey, here's the 42 generations of Jesus? And I was like, I don't know, right? And then I told you like, hey, I've been digging and there's more. There's always more. But I would never have seen it unless I started looking through the Jewish lens of what in the world does 42 mean to them. And for them, it's the fullness of going from slave to son, the transformation, the transcendence into the like divine identity that God has called you into, right? And for them, it marks the 42 stages. It marks all of that stuff as they were entering into the promised land as a son, and they had left behind the slave of being their identity in Egypt. Does that make sense? So for them, when they're looking at 42 generations, it's like, wait a second. Even to this day, those that are not Messianic Jews still pray this Anabacoach, right? They still are praying this thing where it's like the 42 steps, and they call it the 42 letters of God because of this acronym. And it's this transition, this transcendental experience, and they would notice that at the end of the 42 would be the new son, would be the purified one. And so for them, when they're reading the genealogy, even just the genealogy of Jesus at the start, and they get to Jesus being the 42nd generation, it's hey, wait a second, this is the one who is the new son. This is the new creation. This is the one who is the fullness of the purification of the generational lines where we have had to go from slave to son. There's something new that's here. Now, if this is all over your head, that's okay, let me keep moving. Okay, then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted or tested by the devil. After fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. The tempter came to him and said, if you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread. Jesus answered, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. Where did he get that phrase, right? Like, where did he get, he's like, hey, you know what? This is a good throwback to the devil. You know what? Should live by every word that comes out of his mouth instead. No, it's because he knows the word. He knows the scripture, right? Deuteronomy 8. This is Moses talking to the Israelites. If my thing will go there. Okay. Be careful to follow every command I'm giving you today so that you may live and increase and may enter and possess the land that the Lord promised on oath to your ancestors. I want to pause for a second. This is a promise that supersedes, that comes before the old covenant of law. The promise that came before, right, to your ancestors. Remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness these 40 years to humble and test you in order to know what was in your heart, whether or not you would keep his commands, whether or not you would trust what he has to say. He humbled you, causing you to hunger, and then feeding you with manna, which neither you nor your ancestors had known, to teach you that man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes out of the mouth of the Lord. Okay, so he's quoting direct scripture. He's saying, listen, my ancestors back in the desert, man, they decided we actually need the food right now. Like, we don't trust you, God, that you're going to provide. He's like, not making that mistake, right? Keeps going. Your clothes did not wear out. Your feet did not swell. My wife would like that promise, hey? Feet that don't swell. She swells. I sweat. That's just the way it works. Sometimes he creates us differently. All right, during these 40 years, that was too much information. We're going to keep rolling. Know then in your heart that as a man disciplines his son, so the Lord your God disciplines you. It's because the Father wants to discipline his son. And when I say discipline, we always think of punishment. Sometimes there's a punishment that comes with discipline. But a lot of times the disciplining is almost like, listen, I'm going to teach you the discipline of this thing so you can have the fullness of it. Does that make sense? Right? He teaches the discipline so you can have the fullness. Okay. Later down in those verses of Deuteronomy 8, he gave you manna to eat in the wilderness, something your ancestors had never known, to humble and test you, so that in the end it might go well with you. It's to give you a blessing. Right? It's not because he's trying to punish, it's because he wants to bring a blessing, and that blessing you can't really receive unless you have discipline. Anyways, I want to pause again and just tell a personal story. So there's sometimes where God will lead you, right? Lead on, good shepherd. And sometimes it's like he'll lead you into this thing and it's like abundance right away. But usually that's not the case. Usually it's like, okay, he's promised this awesome thing. And we're like, yes, I'm ready for it. And then you walk and it feels like the exact opposite, right? I remember this time where Ange and I, we were living up here at the time. I was working third shift. And it was a tough situation in life. We had a small child. It was winter. It was tough. And he had put it on my heart to go to this camp that's in Arizona. And I remember I applied and I was like, I think this is the job. And they didn't get back to me for like 6 months, right? She's like, can you give this camp up? And I'm like, no, I think we're supposed to be there. I feel like God's saying he wants us to be there. And we kept praying about it, and we had peace that we're supposed to go. Then out of nowhere, they called up and like, hey, you want a job? And I'm like, yep. Went down there. Sold a lot of our stuff. Went into debt to go down there. A few weeks in, man, I realized like I was under a spiritual abuse that I had never known. And I had been in some abusive spots in the world, right? I had been to some hard areas. I had been, overseas where I had seen some neglect and some hardship and some stuff. But it hits a little bit different when it comes from like a Christian, and a Christian who's in authority, and you're like, oh man, I expect the world to be like this, but like here, cool. And Angie and I, we talked, and early on we're like, listen, God was specific to bring us here. We are not moving from this place until he says to move. We're going to wait for his goodness to catch up to us. And I want to tell you something. It was literal years. It was like 3 years of being under abuse where I was making like $26,000 a year. Well, I've got 2 children, one of which has got a cyclical fever syndrome, and we're constantly in the doctors, and we're trying to figure out, man, why is my kid at 106-degree temperature 5 days a week, like once a month, and it rips your heart out. And then, throughout these years, there's these times where things got really tough, and I kept saying, God, are you sure that I'm supposed to be here? I don't know. And we would wrestle, and I was hoping that he would give me a job, and I'd have people that out of the blue, people I didn't even know that were offering me jobs for like triple the pay. And you're like, this sounds pretty good. And we would pray, and either she wouldn't have peace or I wouldn't have peace. And we said, God hasn't released us yet. We're pregnant with Selah. I'm not pregnant. She was pregnant. I just looked pregnant, right? Listen, it's okay. There's humor, right? We're at this spot where we are so far into debt, we are struggling financially. I'm watching as I'm doing 70, 80 hours a week for $26,000, where I see my wife slowly dying. We've got one kid who's sick. She's pregnant with another one and exhausted. We got the older one and I'm sitting there like, okay, I don't know what to do. I don't have a job lined up. I'm not looking because we're waiting for God to release us. And one morning, the one time I don't have the next plan, the next step, the next thing that's going to catch us under my strength, and God says, you're released. We looked at each other the same morning. We both woke up and said, God just released us. That day I put in my 3 week. I said, listen, it'll take me 3 weeks to be able to set you up for the rest of the summer. Where are you going? I was like, I don't know. I guess home. Can't afford anything else. I don't have money in the savings. I've been working for nothing after doing missions for a lot of years. Money hasn't been my forte, so I don't know. But it's time to go. God said it's time to go. We've got a little one, and you're like, man, the pressure as a husband and as a dad, where you're like, whoo, okay, all right, well, God released us, so I'm going to follow this by faith because he said so. Right? Got a U-Haul to come up here because I was like, well, I guess I got to live in my parents' basement. That's a really good one for your ego when you're, an adult male with children. And a week and a half in, and I get this phone call out of the blue from a camp that I had never heard of and said, hey, we just lost our second in command over here at this camp. Any chance you're interested? We'd double your pay. We'll bring you over. And I was like, if it happens, it's got to happen fast, because otherwise in a week and a half I'm moving to Michigan, and I can't afford to move twice. Within a week and a half, I had a job in California, right? Now, that's a provision story where God saw before my need. He knew, hey, for 3 years we've been saying, God, we're not moving until you say move. And when he said move, we said, okay, we're going to take the step of moving, but we didn't know where that step was going to land. We are the ones that try to plan our footsteps, but he's the one that actually knows where they're going to go. But the question is, do we trust in that thing? Man, it's tough, right? Exodus 16, they set out from Elim. Elim, it's that place where it's the palms, it's the oasis in the desert, and all the congregation of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin. This is not like sin, like I did something wrong. It's actually seen, and it means the place, the wilderness of the place, right? Which is between the place of the palms and that on the 15th day of the second month after they left the land to Sinai. And the Sinai means a place of like thorn bushes. So from palms to thorn bushes, they're stuck at a place. The whole congregation of the Israelites grew discontented. That was a hard word for some reason. And murmured and rebelled against Moses and Aaron. They went against Moses and Aaron. I want you to pause and realize next time you're upset with Pastor Benny, just skip it. Just go to him. He's the source, right? Which part of the testing that they're going through is God wants to reconnect them to the source and cut out the middleman of Moses and Aaron, right? Anyways, Israelites said to them, would that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat and ate bread until we were full. But you have brought us into this wilderness to kill the entire assembly with hunger. I want to be clear here. They're testing God. Right? Man, I wish we would have gone back to Egypt. At least we had fresh bread. All we had to do is we had to turn in our labor. We had to build with stones and bricks to receive bread. Right? Jesus, hey, if you are the Son of God, why don't you just exchange stones for bread? He's inviting him into the slavery of the past. You see what I'm saying? Right? And the Lord said to Moses, I'll rain down bread from heaven. I will provide for you. The people are going to go out each day and gather enough for that day. And this way, I'll test them and see whether they will follow my instructions. Are they going to trust my words or not? Here we go again. On the sixth day, they're to prepare what they bring in. And that is to be twice as much as they gather on the other days. We did a whole sermon on this about a year and a half ago. I'm just going to touch on it super fast. If you want me to go in more depth, come talk to me another time. Exodus 15 and 16, you see that after a 3-day journey into the wilderness, they complained to Moses and Aaron. Okay? 3-day journey. They collect manna. It's like flakes of frost on the ground. There's a daily allotment of manna to gather given from a king. It's given from a king. And right, there's this phrase in Hebrew, davar yom bayomo, which means each day's matter on that day. And then there's a double as much day, right? Every 6th day they get double the amount, right? No more manna, no less manna, right? You don't have to fight over it. No need to hoard it, right? The strong and the weak get what they need. And then, you know what? I demand you have a Sabbath rest. You got to take a break. You got to have rest, right? And we talked about how, you know what, when we looked at that, you're like, man, God's got some, like, rules and laws, and, like, these are kind of weird. It's like, why in the world did he decide to have these laws as their first laws, right? And do you remember when we looked at it, we said, oh, wait a second. He's redeeming their history in Egypt, right? We paused and we remembered, wait a second. When they were in Egypt, they had the opposite of this. They have an understanding of a pharaoh, of a king that's exact opposite, right? So if you look at Exodus earlier on, they complained to Pharaoh and requested what? A 3-day journey into the wilderness. And he's like, if you got 3 days, if you got time to like think about going and partying in the wilderness for 3 days, we're going to double your work. You know what? Collect straw and make bricks on the ground. There's a daily allotment of bricks that they had to give to a king. See what I'm saying? You have a davar yom bayomo. Each day's matter on that day. You have a double as much day. Hey, you know what? Today and on, we have double the work that we have to do. No more straw, no less bricks, right? Need to fight over it, hoard it, strong, right? So like, there's no Sabbath, there's no rest. So I want you to picture this, right? So they're in Egypt. And if it's like, we did this whole thing, right? So if me and Alex both have to provide for our families, right? And all of a sudden, there's double the work that needs to be done. We have to have the same amount of bricks, but we don't have any straw. We have to do more work to get there. And there's a limited amount of capacity. Well, now he just became my competition. Now I've got to fight Alex for to be the first one to get the straw, right? Which means the stronger you are, the more likely that you end up having enough for yourself. You get greedy. You take it in, right? And the weaker you are, the more likely you get beat. The more likely you watch your children get beat, right? And so for them, it's all about how do I hoard so that my family doesn't get punished by a king who demands more from me, right? And we talked about how these are like training wheel laws where God's like, listen, I know that like you think of being in submission to a king is not a good thing because you've had not a good experience. So instead of demanding from you, I'm going to provide for you. Instead of having hey, there's no rest, you can't rest, I'm demanding you take a break. Hey, instead of saying, you know what, you got to have double the work, I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to provide double the blessings today. You see what I'm saying? He is reversing a curse so that they can start trusting in his word that he is actually good. He is on their side. He's providing for them. He's like, you know what? Whether you go out all day and try to collect all the manna that you want, all that you can, when you get back home to your tent, you still got an omer. If you're a grandma and you go out there and you're like, oh, I'm tired, here's my amount, and you step back into your tent, you still have an omer. Like, think about the provision and the blessing and the miracle. Whether you trust his word and you take a step out and you pick up one flake and you bring it into you got the same amount as the guy that just spent 12 hours working his butt off out there. Because he's saying it's not about you. It's not about your performance. It's not about your strength. It's not about your strategy. It's not about how early you do anything. You need to understand the source of the one who gives it all to you. And I can provide it all, and I need you to understand I see your situation, and I can provide more than enough. It's what we talked about earlier last week, right? You've got Adam and Eve who've got this bad eye, right? This Hebrew, the bad eye, basically it's this thing that you're lacking. You're always lacking. They're literally in the Garden of Eden. Like, think about how much abundance there is of everything. They've got authority over almost everything. There's literally one thing they can't eat from. And they look at the whole equation and say, I'm lacking one thing. You got Jesus who's got nothing. He's in the desert, right? He's got no food. He's got no water. He's got someone saying, hey, if you really are the Son of God, you know those stones, they would look really good if they're bread. I bet you can't do that. Hey, if you're the one that's tied to the living God, you probably could. He's like, you know what? I've got more than enough with just holding on to the words, oh, this is my son whom I'm well pleased. I don't even need to eat today. Are you kidding me? Right? Like, could we be in that same spot, even knowing all of the history? Would we act the same? Would we say, no, he gave me this magical power to turn rocks into bread. I'm going to try this thing. Right? God was redeeming a slave mindset. He gave them a day of rest instead of calling them lazy. God gave them security instead of their fear. The king gave them enough manna to go around instead of not enough straw to go around. God gave them double manna instead of double work. God revealed he was their God by listening to their complaints. I'm going to get to that in a second. God told them he'd provide for them, and then he did provide for them. The test was, do you believe and trust my word? Okay, let's keep going. God's provision was new every morning. He encouraged practicing taking care of the poor and the weak. He encouraged a life without fear about tomorrow, a chance to celebrate the goodness of laws instead of the heaviness of law, an invitation to get the slave mindset out of them and invite them into a parent-child relationship. Keep going. Exodus 16. So Moses and Aaron said to all the Israelites, in the evening you're going to know that it was the Lord who brought you out of Egypt. In the morning you're going to see the glory of God because he has heard your grumbling against him. Pause for a second. In the morning you're going to see the glory of God. This is a people group in Egypt where they saw plague after plague, where God was like, oh, you think that God has power? Watch this power. Oh, also I've got precision. I can do things here, but not there. I can do it now, but not later. I can do it later, but not. Every one of the steps, like if you don't see like flaming hail coming down and it doesn't get your attention, that maybe, just maybe, there's a God that has some power. If you're standing at the edge of the sea and you're like, we're going to get swallowed up by this army, they're coming down after us, and God splits the sea so you can walk across. Like, you talk about miraculous, powerful things. Moses is like, you want to know when you're going to understand that he is God? That he is your God? It's that he heard you grumbling, and he still responded. I want you to hear this. A God, there's zero gods in this world except for him, right? But the earth's understanding of gods is that gods demand sacrifice. They demand you give. They don't ever give back. And you know what? If you've got problems, it doesn't really matter because you're a slave to obedience to them. Do you know who listens to a grumbling person and still provides for them anyway? A father. You will know that he is your God. He will explain to you, he's going to reveal to you that he is your father. Part of the purification of them in the desert is going from a slave mindset to actually trusting, maybe, just maybe, he wants to be my dad. And you're going to know that he's your dad when he hears you complaining and he still gives you bread. He provides for you. Oh, Oh, you want to grumble some more? We wish we had meat. No problem. It's a desert, but let me just send a bunch of quail, so much that's like to your knees. Like, what are you going to do with this? Eat the quail. All right, there you go. I heard you again. I don't encourage grumbling against God. But I need you to hear that if it takes you grumbling to God to be able to hear and understand that he hears you, he cares about you, and he'll respond to you, may you have that experience. The rest of you, there's an invitation into wisdom. There's a bunch of people that had that experience before. You can see the pattern where he fulfills it over and over and over again, right? And you've got this opportunity, just like Jesus had this opportunity in the desert of like, man, will I actually want to fill my mouth right now? Will I sacrifice the inheritance, the promise, for a bite to eat now? Or will I trust in his word and I know that he's going to provide? I don't know when he's going to provide. I don't know how he's going to provide. But I'm going to take a step knowing that he is good. He has provision. He can give me what I need. Man shall not live by bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. I want to pause and think back about Adam. Right? You've got all of these layers over and over and over again that you see, but really it starts off the first sin. You have Adam and Eve, who God had told them things, but instead of trusting God, they decided, I'm going to listen and trust this other voice that's going to start off with, did God really say? Did God really say that? And invited them to take a bite to eat. Right? They went from this sonship where they missed out on the fullness of the inheritance that God wanted them to live in, and they went from there into the desert all for a bite. All for a bite. And then you've got Jesus who's redeeming all the way back to the very first sin, and he's not willing to trade a bite to eat, to be able to listen to his Father instead of the other voice that's sitting next to him saying, did God really say? One of the questions I have is, are we hungry for his provision? We're looking to fill ourselves with the first thing that tells us it's going to satisfy. There's a blessing on being hungry. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Think about that for a second. Blessed are those who are hungry and thirsty. If you're hungry and thirsty, are you already satisfied? There's a blessing on those that believe that, you know what, if I wait upon the Lord, I'll never be put to shame, that if I am hungry and I wait on him, he will provide, which means that they are not trying to fill and satisfy themselves with things of the world now on their own strength. They're waiting on him, and they trust that God will provide. Man, beauty in that. Here's some more reflections. Do you believe the voices that tell you that you're always going to be lacking? Do you believe his voice says he delights in you? You've got more than enough. Do you trust in his provision, his word? The testing and the temptation of Jesus, man, it goes all the way back to Adam. You see it in all these other ones, and it goes to us too. Will we actually trust his word? Will we actually trust his provision, that he is a good shepherd, that he knows, he sees before, and can provide? Authority comes through trust as sons, not by force as slaves. He doesn't lead us away from hard to rescue us. He leads us through hard to shape and transform us. Tell you what, those 3 years in Arizona were hard. But he used those to purify, to bring some stuff to the surface. Does that mean that I'm a finished work? No. I'm still going to have hard things to come. But my hope is every time that I'm in the fire, I start reflecting a little bit more of him. The wilderness feels like abandonment, but it's actually anointed isolation. A good father won't guide us down a path he's not willing to walk. I thank Jesus for having the willingness to walk the hard path. and guide us through it. A good father provides for his children even when they grumble. We're going to break up into groups to just pray in just a second. You can use these reflections if you want. Again, we're going to end our services like this for a while, where you have a chance to just pray with each other. If you're done praying with each other, I just ask you to go and find a spot or move back, get coffee, or go outside. Just find a spot, but this is a great time for you to get to meet somebody new or get to know how somebody's doing. In the meantime, Heavenly Father, I just thank you for your goodness and your faithfulness. God, I thank you that you delight in us before we sit down to take any tests, and that your delight in us is not predicated on how well we do on the tests. God, help us have eyes to see how much you enjoy us, ears to hear the words that you sing over us, a heart that has the courage and softness to believe it and to cling to it and let it transform us. God, I ask that you would put your sweetness on these, your people. God, I ask that you would make them a blessing to each other, make them a blessing to those that are in their family, that are in their neighborhood, that are their friends, that are at their place of work. God, I ask that you would transform us into people that are quick to receive your generosity, quick to understand that with you we always have more than enough, and that it would be a generosity that also in turn draws us to give in generosity. That we would give forgiveness and grace and love and mercy and humor in generosity. God, that we would reflect you. God, that we would have a childlikeness that embodies your enjoyment. God, I ask that you bless us as we break into groups to pray, and that you would bless the time tonight as we come together just to hang out and just be with you. God, we invite you to just make your presence known in us and through us. We ask this in your name and for your name. Let it be so. All right, go ahead and break up.